Hello everyone and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, and today we've got 3 new decks for you, and then we're going to go over the top 5 decks for Infinite Conquest. These are the 5 decks with the highest win rate, each one above 65%. We casually are also going to drop you 3 top 20 decks, including 2 in the top 5 and the number 1 deck. We're going to start with this deck from Nagal. It is a ongoing deck that is the number 3 ranked deck in Marvel Snap currently. This one is really cool. It's got a lot of synergies, a lot of tricks to it. Let's get started by first noting that this is the number 1 player on the Asia server and the number 3 ranked player in all of Marvel Snap. This deck needs Gore, Ravonna, Moonstone, and Antivenom. Those 4 are required. In fact, we're going to see a lot of Gore today. Gore is on the upswing right now in terms of what cards you want to play in Marvel Snap. Kate Bishop here can be Sam Wilson or Quake. Quake is just a really good 2-drop at disrupting and stealing cubes. Kate is obviously better in this list. And Sam is incredible. We're going to talk more about Sam later in this video. Sage here can be either Wolfsbane or Juggernaut. Each one is perfectly fine. They do slightly different things. I'm a little partial to Juggernaut here. I think the disruption has more value than the actual power. So Ravonna is here for several reasons. She alone makes Green Goblin, Sage, Iron Man, and Gore cheaper. That's 4 targets. Not a million, but 4 targets are very good. Being able to do things like play Green Goblin with Sage or Mystique Green Goblin and Sage on the last turn of the game is an incredibly powerful trio, but what you really want to do is double her up with Moonstone. If you can do that, that's a snap condition you should feel incredibly far ahead when you do that. Shadow King is here for 2 reasons. First, no one expects it anymore. It's fundamentally out of the meta, despite being a really great card with cards like Galacta and Silver Surfer all over the place, so Shadow King is very good at stealing cubes from those matchups. In addition, if you anti-venom a card whose stats you care about, and there's not much by way of that here outside of really kind of Green Goblin, Moonstone, and anti-venom, but you can Shadow King that location to get those I guess you can't anti-venom, duh. But the other cards. So you can Shadow King that location to get those cards their power back. You control whether you do that before or after Sage, so you should be toward fine to do that and then Sage toward the end of the game for a massive power spike. Kate Bishop gives you extra cards to play and is just a generally good 2-drop. That's really all she is here. Her extra little bit of power gives some benefit to Iron Man, and her extra potential on reveals gives some power to Gore, but she's mostly just here as a good card that helps your deck. Green Goblin is made cheaper by Ravonna and offers you a little bit of clog. The second people see Ravonna and Goblin, they start to plan for all of these other clog cards that aren't really there outside of Kate's Acid Arrow, and just taking up that little bit of space can be a game-winning play. Mystique is here almost entirely for Iron Man or Gore. If you can do either of those under Moonstone, unless your opponent has a counter, you've won that lane. That's backbreaking. You don't really want to hit anything else with Mystique here. Sage is another end of the game play. It's a 0 power card, so it works well with the Anti-Venom and the Ravonnas in the deck, and thus when you play it, you get all this power for an extremely cheap cost. Having an extra turn is important for this list because you are trying to set up multiple combos where you want to sort of have an explosive last turn where you do several huge things, and Magic enables you to do that. Rogue is here for a lot of different cards. In my head and my heart, it's because dealing with Super Scroll is a nightmare for this list. Super Scroll will basically single-handedly beat you, but if you can Rogue it off, you can basically win that matchup. Rogue is just important and powerful no matter what. Being able to hit an opposing Luke Cage and thus ruining their deck while turning things off is game-winning. Rogue, at the end of the game, as a huge surprise card, is a massive amount of power, although she is not made cheaper by Ravonna, which is worth knowing. Moonstone, again, is here largely for Ravonna and Mystique. I mean, entirely really for Ravonna and Mystique, though it does have some synergy with the Pym arrow. That's very good. If you can get it on Ravonna, you have explosive turns. If you can get it on Mystique, you basically win a lane. Anti-Venom gives you another way to combo off besides Magic. Magic and Anti-Venom, along with Moonstone and Ravonna, are 3 different ways to set up your combos. Anti-Venom hitting a Sage or Iron Man or Gore or Mystique can all be game-winning plays. You spend your last turn after a Ravonna playing a free Mystique with Iron Man or free Mystique with Gore. That's such a big power spike. Opponents will have a very hard time beating you, and you get extra cubes that way. Iron Man and Gore are just your big ongoings. They are how you get stats in this list. Iron Man can be fairly small here, so be a little bit careful. Iron Man tends to go with either Anti-Venom, Sage, or some of Kate's arrows in order to make sure it has enough power. You can also go Iron Man and Gore, and then you can play Mystique under Moonstone on either Iron Man or Gore, and that'll usually win pretty damn well. And that combo is not uncommon for this list. All right, so as of recording, this is the rank 3 list. Turn 1, you pass. Turn 2, Ravonna Renslayer over Kate Bishop. Turn 3, Ravonna over Magic over Green Goblin over a 2-drop. Turn 4, we want Moonstone or Antivenom, and there are conditional snaps. Fair warning to anyone who's new here. White means you can almost always snap this. Green means you can snap this conditionally. Moonstone, you're snapping if you're dropping it on Ravona. You should have snapped Ravona already, but if you're snapping on, you can snap it on Ravona. Or if you have a Mystique in hand with either of the big cards, you can snap on Moonstone. Either one of those works just fine. Antivenom is a conditional snap after. If you have all your good hits in, you can snap before Antivenom. But generally speaking, you want to snap after Antivenom if you get a really good target. Opponents should run, but they don't really do that. You can also feel free to just cold drop an Iron Man here because Ravona makes that possible. Turn 5 is your last magic turn. That is important to note. You can also play Gore or Iron Man. If you can go Iron Man and then you can copy it with Mystique and play Magic, you should probably be snapping, but you probably should have snapped on that Ravona already at that point. You can also drop Gore or Iron Man if you're not going to get that magic out or if you already played magic. Antivenom and Moonstone are likewise fine here in terms of I already played magic and I know I have the turns to take advantage of these. Turn 6, we've got some combination of turn 6 or 7. We've got some combination of Gore, Iron Man, Mystique, Sage, and Shadow King. Maybe sometimes you can throw Rogue in there. This can be turn 6 and turn 7, and you should be able to put out an insane amount of power, as discussed on the previous slide. Props to Nagol for this amazing list. It is really strong. This one feels a little bit like that old Cougar ongoing thing. It is climbing to the top. There's going to be, again, a ton of magic and gore all over the place as people have seemingly stopped countering these decks. Everyone's testing out a bunch of new things, and this is climbing right to the top. Hey, we're giving away an Agamotto this week. Make sure you check either Sunday or Monday's video if you would like to see if you won. I'll have to do a sub, like, and then later this video, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. Please do so in order to enter to win our last Agamotto. Next week, we're going to be giving away 5, you heard that right, 5 copies of Agent Carter. In addition, please hit that sub button. Overall, we bring you the most Marvel Snap content. This is video 1 of 2 for today. We should have a second video going up later today for the OTA. Please hit that sub, like, and comment. We will do our best to give you the best and the most Marvel Snap content of absolutely anyone. Next up, we have the number 1 deck, shockingly by Derek. The only number 1 players who didn't cheat to get there since like last August are Derek and Sizer, and then like that's really impressive. Derek is back to number 1. He is seemingly off from school. He's a college student. He's seemingly off from school and is just grinding Marvel Snap and absolutely crushing this season. This is the deck he has been using for about the past week. He asked me to hold off on sharing it for a little bit, so I did. But this is absolutely stellar. This feels like such a mishmash of cards. And then you play it together and you go, oh, I see how this works, because everything in this list fits absolutely beautifully. You only really need Galacta and Frigga for this list. Cannonball can be Shang-Chi. Cannonball's better, that's why it's here, but it can be Shang-Chi. Hydra Bob can be Nightcrawler, you do want something that moves, you are running Elsa. Elsa everyone should have right now. I do think you are going to need Elsa for this list, but everyone should own Elsa Bloodstone because they gave her to everyone for free during Christmas. She's also a Series 4 card. Luna Snow can be Hope Summers, and Kate, Iron Patriot, and Sam can be Jeff, Quake, Cable, and Mirage. Cool? Hopefully this makes sense to everybody. All right, let's go through the card by card. So Kitty Pryde is absolutely incredible. She's here largely for Elsa Bloodstone. Being able to play Kitty on Elsa lets you scale her up. Magic having an extra term to do that works really well. And then there's one other card that's really, really powerful here. Actually, I guess 2 other cards that are really powerful here. Galacta also helps you scale Kitty. You end with a 1/8, 1/9 Kitty, and then you can frigate it around turn 5 or turn 6 in a 7-turn game. With that extra power, Kitty Pryde is an absolute lane and game winner. You can do a similar thing with Hydra Bob, where you can hit it with Galactic, use it to fill an Elsa lane, and then frigate it, being a massive power spike. That is at least a 1/7 that you would have in your hand, potentially up to a 1/9, which again is an absolutely game-winning card. Also, it moves, so it can take the Elsa buff, and then you can snap it away. You do have to be careful in any deck with Hydra Bob when and how you are snapping to not clog yourself. Playing it with Kitty Pryde works just fine for that purpose. Kate Bishop gives you extra 1-drops to do the same shenanigans with as always. That's basically it. She's just really good. I don't know how else to put it. She is a very good card. Cannonball gives a little bit of extra benefit to the Acid Arrow, but Kitty Pryde is one of the best cards in Marvel Snap. Also, spoiler for Saturday when we do our Spotlight Cash review, our spot for next season, Kahori is coming, and Kahori is going to make Kate Bishop be everywhere. Iron Patriot. Let's do our quick Iron Patriot chat. We do it once per video. So Iron Patriot is one of the best snap conditions in Marvel Snap, assuming he's not nerfed later today. Fundamentally, if you win an Iron Patriot lane, you can snap. The opponent should generally run. That's it. You don't have any special ways to win that Iron Patriot lane, except that Luna Snow is a 3/6, and that's a lot of stats. and Hydra Bob is a 1/4, and that's a lot of stats. So if you can pull off that Iron Patriot lane win, you should snap your opponent. If they're any good, should generally run, because you could have anything unless they have Mobius. I don't know why I say those cards wrong. Unless you have Mobius, then you should be able to snap and get a win. Sam Wilson is big. Keyword big is important. Also, moving that shield in order to fill and unfill Elsa lanes, being able to move which lane you're filling for Elsa is a very, very strong combo. Magic gives you enough turns to do all this. This is ultimately sort of a double kitty deck, and you need extra turns to do that. You're trying to take advantage of Elsa and Galacta to make smaller things really big to win. Elsa is one of your two pumpers, along with Galacta here. Again, I cannot wait for Kahori to be in this list. Frigga is your copy, whatever thing you've made big. If you've got two really big things, you can drop with an Iron Man on turn 7, a second two big kitties or a Hydra Bob and an arrow that you can drop with an Iron Man on turn 7. You've basically won that game, right? Or you can cannonball something off, winning a lane a little bit on the cheap, and then you can drop like 16 to 20 power of Kitty Pride in another lane. Luna is the ramp you need to really make this deck work. You do want that extra energy. If you see Magic, you don't always need Luna. The two sort of do the same thing in the list, just changing what turns they work on. Galacta with Elsa is your other big scaler for the list. Their jobs are both to put up massive amounts of points and thus win you the game. Like Galacta basically, because +3 is so much, makes anything a threat. Elsa, it takes a little bit. Elsa makes your board a threat. It makes your board a lot bigger, but Galacta makes like a single card that wasn't looking like a threat really, really serious and real. Like a 6 power Kate Bishop is so much more dangerous, for example. Iron Man is basically the 5 doubler. It's the saying, I need a big lane to be won. Iron Man says that, so does Cannonball. That's why they're here. They are the two ways to win a lane that is really, really big and competitive. It's worth noting that Shang can do a lot of what Cannonball can, but if your opponent is playing like a scaler that isn't scaling yet and you want to get it off to another lane that you think you can win and compete with, Cannonball does the job. Also, people just fill lanes by the end, right? And no one expects Cannonball in this type of build. All right, so the rank 1 deck, turn 1, Kitty over Bob. Turn 2, Iron Patriot over Sam over Kate. Iron Patriot is a potential snap condition, as discussed on the previous slide. Luna is almost always a snap condition. It is basically a safer magic, unless you think your opponent has Killmonger or Red Guardian for it. That's better than Elsa, which is better than Magic. Turn 4, you want Galacta, which is also a snap condition. You can also do a 2/2. Just fine. You have plenty of good 2s here. This is your last good Iron Patriot turn, unless you're playing Magic. If you are playing Magic, Magic and Iron Patriot is fine on turn 5. And then you can play Elsa plus a buff card to fill. If you're getting Elsa plus buff now, you're starting to really, really sing. And if you've got a couple 1s in hand after Luna, you can almost always get that Elsa fill, which is really, really nice. Turn 5, last Magic, and if you didn't play Luna, you're very often going to want to make sure you play Magic here. That's better than Iron Man, and then you can also play random cheaper stuff. Like if you drew into a Galacta and a 1 or a Galacta and a 2 ain't bad. Turn 6 is basically you're choosing Cannonball or Iron Man Plus, and you're doing the same concept with Magic. This list is awesome. I've been playing this list for a little bit now, and it is absolutely incredibly strong. Do give it a try as soon as you see this video, assuming you have access to the cards that are required. Spotlight card thoughts for Khonshu. This is our top player thoughts segment. We're going to do 2 sections of top player thoughts. Then we're going to do our Khonshu deck for the day, which I believe, as far as I know, is the highest ranked Khonshu deck in Marvel Snap currently, as I choke to death on my own spit. So, Ika, one of the top deck builders in Marvel Snap, top 100 players, is simply not good enough to be the star of a deck. I think that's important. That is fundamentally where I land. We're going to see that thought repeated multiple times. I think he's an amazing role player that we're trying to build around a little bit much, although again, the highest ranked version is a build around of the card. W, another top deck builder, created multiple top decks, much like Ika, says, I'm underwhelmed, but I can see it aging super well. I just don't love the gimmicky type of fits it's trying to make work right now. I agree with Ika and W. I think it's going to be a good card. I just think we're trying to go too far into it. The Great Lambie, one of the great players ever in Marvel Snap, says, so it's just better as new Modok Apocalypse deck. That seems like the easiest home. Which again is what I shared yesterday. I have that deck for you. There's different versions of that. We're going to see another one later this video when we talk about Conquest, and I do think that is an effective home because it doesn't expect it to be the star of the deck. However, Skosko, the head writer of Snapvan, disagrees. Better as part of a small package than anticipated. Dedicated Khonshu decks, I'm totally not sold on yet. So as a small package, it works, right? Like, which we're not seeing a ton of. That means the deck has to have other win conditions. When the deck wants Khonshu to win, it's still really struggling. Jimmy Dickens, another top player, was in a deck from yesterday that people are really rocking with. Says he's strong, but I think it will take some time to tease out his real potential. He's the 12th card in a traditional discard and doesn't really improve it, but he can fit other molds, and I think haven't been truly explored. Hard to judge since day one Fenris and general counters were everywhere, which is always the case. Because of Marvel Snap's card release schedule, new cards are always going to have that going against them, as long as Spotlight caches do what they do. Roram says, honestly, meh. Roram is a top 10 player, currently ranked 7. Flavor of the week, Bullseye. Discard is still stronger, so people will stop back to that until Bullseye gets nerfed. Then discard players will main Khonshu. Sounds right to me. Bullseye is one of the very best decks in the game. I think Bullseye is secretly one of the top 2 or 3 decks, and no one ever talks about it. Crime Afoot says, fun but very mediocre in the list he's being ran in given the time. Could be better later down the road. Crime is another top 100 player, along with Roram, another excellent streamer. 2 of the smaller streamers you should be checking out. Faux show. So, a lot of people are thinking that the current lists have a lot to, um, have a lot still left to be determined, and this is really hard, making it really hard to evaluate. Toxic Soul King notes that the potential is high, but right now not good. Another amazing small streamer, one of my favorite people in this community. Cougar, soon to be an amazing streamer and the current rank 5 player in the game, says I beat a bunch of Khonshu gamers just running standard Bullseye discard. Sounds right. Bullseye discard is just significantly better than this. Blue Tears, another top 100 player who's especially impressive given that he's usually Conquest main, says he's very good in Dracula Apocalypse discard. I believe he brings this version discard back up to par with Bullseye version. I think it's a little worse, but Blue Tears is welcome to his opinion. Everything else felt niche. Scream Connoisseur, who is currently around rank 15 with a Scream deck, says definitely an interesting card with potential, but I think we haven't found the best shell yet. Also, the main question is whether it's better than the Bullseye deck. Spoiler, again, I think no. I don't think there's a real argument that Khonshu decks are going to be better than Bullseye decks, so they're not going to see a lot of play until Bullseye decks go away. Ratko, top 100 player, general tournament competitor, says toughest weekend missions we ever had, which is his way of saying, I don't like this card. Pluto, a top 30-ish player, usually meaning Thanos, says I think it's interesting design with powerful potential, but probably does not move the needle enough unless you love discard anyway. Card is really great in discard. Let's hear from a discard enjoyer, BBAK, who is a former number 1 player, has been often top 3. A little addicted to Desire at the time, but still tested the card. It's interesting, but I'm not sure if it's any good because it's less stable than the existing deck. Honifer, another top 20 player, formerly top 2, says seems decent, more of a side grade than an upgrade though. And I think that's a really, really good take. And then I saved for last Denish, whose deck we covered on the first day of the card's release, says seems like a good secondary win condition, but is currently just a downgraded version of Hela, and I think it will take a few months before it finds a home that is a side grade upgrade to a Hela deck. Definitely has strong potential, but not thoroughly impressed yet. Of course, I'm looking through a green tinted lens and could be good in regular discard as well, but I don't play that, so I don't know. So it is, I'm just going to say, very good in regular discard. It's going to be some time before we figure out the exact right version of regular discard, though, and it has at least some potential in other homes. Which leads us to this Nithiel deck. Nithiel's Khonshu deck is, in fact, very, very good. He's currently in the top 20, I believe rank 18, but peaked at rank 16 with it. It is running sort of a small package where it doesn't actually need to do the thing with Khonshu to win, right? If you end up playing Black Bolt and your last turn, for example, is Iron Man and Stature, you win. Or if you go Luna Snow into Black Bolt, into Iron Man Stature, into Gore, you're still going to win a lot of games in Marvel Snap. And having that ability to sort of multiplay is where we want to be, as my alarm has gone off, excuse me. You can find Nithiel at twitch.tv/ni_Thiel. He is a French player who is stellar and always near the top of the Infinite Leaderboard. This deck needs Khonshu, Gore, and the first Ghost Rider, so go finish your high voltage. Luna can be Hope or Fastos. Nico can be either Iceman or Hydra Bob. Either one is totally fine. So let's go through these cards and what they do. Spider-Ham is super great disruption right now. A lot of people are like trying to use every card, holding important things till late game, and Spider-Ham basically turns that off in very powerful ways. You hit a bullseye, you get a snap condition out of this card. Spider-Ham being in Series 3, it should be played more right now. It's also really good with Nico, who can turn that into a demon or draw 2. The same thing is true of fundamentally any card with Nico through turn 3 outside of Luna. You're perfectly happy to turn a card into a demon or a draw 2 with her, or give it +2 strength or a location change later. She's amazing filler in this list. Blade is going to be in every Khonshu deck for the foreseeable future. It's one of the easiest and most specific ways to target a card. All you have to do is draw it and have Blade in hand. and all of a sudden it plays from way more than 1/3. The first Ghost Rider is basically, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's just better Silver Samurai, right? You pay double for Silver Samurai to get a discard out of the opponent's hand. No thanks. I'll just take up the first Ghost Rider and be able to chuck the Gore or Iron Man. Thank you. Being able to chuck Gore or Iron Man with it's incredibly strong. That is just a straight up 2/5 in stats. Meanwhile, Moon Knight has the 3/3, and it's got very few targets in the deck. Outside of that first Ghost Rider, it's really only hitting Gore or Khonshu, and obviously you need to discard Khonshu a couple times. Lady Sif, again, Gore or Khonshu are your goals. Sometimes you'll have Iron Man as your top card, and you're happy to do that. Luna gives you a ramp play pattern that lets you win games if you don't see Khonshu early, and is just obviously an otherwise incredibly powerful card. Being able to play Iron Man or Black Bolt on turn 4 or Gore on turn 5 are incredibly strong. Don't be afraid to Khonshu on turn 5 either, especially if you're Khonshuing as a 6/8 and you still have like a Gore in hand. If you're able to get back an Iron Man as an 8 power card, or even one of your like cheaper cards as an 8 power card, like a 8 power Spider Ham seems pretty decent. You're still making 16 power that turn, doing some disruption, and then being able to play a Gore to win the game. Black Bolt is here for stature. Moon Knight and Black Bolt are the stature package. They give you a 1/7 while disrupting the opponent. 1/7 is a lot. It's fundamentally the whole logic here. Stature again goes with Black Bolt, and then Gore, Iron Man, Khonshu are fundamentally a little package. So the Khonshu small package seems to be Blade, First Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Lady Sif, Iron Man, Gore, Khonshu, which is not exactly a small package. It's 7 cards, but it does leave you 5 cards to fill out the rest of your deck and do other things that are interesting and powerful. For example, Black Bolt and Stature with Luna. All right, so this is rank 18. Turn 1, you want Blade of Khonshu, Nico if destroy for draw 2, or if turned into a demon, or Hem. Turn 2, you want Blade of Khonshu over first Ghost Rider on Iron Man or Gore. You will take Blade for Khonshu over that first Ghost Rider because first Ghost Rider is still good later, while the Blade of Khonshu is only good for the turn it happens. Turn 3 is Luna, and Luna is a snap condition if you have Black Bolt or Iron Man fundamentally, or if you're able to discard Khonshu multiple times. Lady Sif or Moon Knight are perfectly fine. Obviously, Moon Knight is better if you don't have first Ghost Rider in hand, and Lady Sif if you're guaranteed to hit Khonshu or Gore. Turn 4, you feel free to, by the way, on turn 3, play first Ghost Rider for the same targets. It is the same power as Sif and more than Moon Knight, even though it costs less. Turn 4, if you can Black Bolt, you should Black Bolt. Black Bolt is damn near a snap condition, and will be after this week. I think it's a little rough this week because you might be discarding something that they actually want you to discard. Or you can play discard, you can play Sif, Moon Knight, first Ghost Rider, whatever of those cards on turn 4, fine. Turn 5 is your last chance to discard, or you can drop Khonshu or Gore, or you can play Black Bolt if you didn't get Luna out, and then turn 6, Khonshu or Gore. And if you played Luna, you can now, and you played Black Bolt or Moon Knight at some point, you can now play Khonshu or Gore with Stature, and that's just a ton of power, usually enough to win a game, and that's how you fundamentally steal cubes. Stature is insanely key as far as stealing cubes in the regular versions of the list, which is why Luna is also so freaking good here. If you don't have Luna, that gets really complicated, and you're probably going to need Hope Summers to really make that up. Hey, I'll be live tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be streaming the recording of the Snap Justice podcast. So if you want to hear a breakdown of the OTA outside of my individual video, a longer discussion on that, please make sure you check it out tonight. This is my schedule. See, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. I should also be live at 3:15 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, where hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll have the new season video that we can watch together and talk about. Next up, we've got our season pass question. If you're entering to win the season pass, is simply, how do you feel about Conquest now? Do you still play it? How much do you play it? Do you go for Infinity Borders? I actually completely freaking forgot Conquest for most of the season, and I'm gonna have to rush to make sure I get that. I do want the variant. I always make sure I get the variant. I'm gonna have to rush to make sure I get the variant, and then I'm gonna forget about it again. Let me know what you think. Speaking of that, let's go over the top 5 Conquest decks. So these are the top 5 decks in Infinity Conquest, and number 1 is unsurprisingly the Bullseye list. There's actually 2 different versions of this that both have insanely high win rates. One runs Grandmaster, one runs Gambit, but either way, this list is so freaking hard to beat. It has gameplay. The Grandmaster gives you gameplay into Mobius. Without that, you can struggle into Mobius. But fundamentally, what you can do is you can either do the everyone should know this by now, right? But what you can do is you can use Bullseye and Modok to flame up your scalers. Those are Meek, Scorn, and Morbius. Sorry, Meek, Morbius, and Collector, which can fly up. If you can discard one Swarm and then use Modok and Bullseye, you basically get giant power that's nearly unbeatable. You can also go Doc and Frigga, and then you can Grandmaster and play the second Dakin, or you can drop Bullseye and then Grandmaster the second Dakin. That's going to give you 3 shards when you play the last Dakin. If you do that on turn 5, you can play Modok. If you play Bullseye on turn 4, on turn 5, that way, you can then use Bullseye, and you end up with 2 32 power cards, which is again usually enough to win a game. And it doesn't usually win Prio, so you should be more than powerful enough to really take off. This is, again, at worst, a top 3 deck in Marvel Snap right now. I think it has a real argument for being absolutely number 1 right now. Next up, we have Mr. Negative. This is the Cougar version that we saw. It is the best ranked Mr. Negative. It is now also the best Conquest Mr. Negative. This one, again, has a high 60% win rate, because if your opponent doesn't have Mobius, you can just run when you don't see negative and snap when you do, and there's very little the opponent can do to stop you. If you see negative enough, which is variance related, but not like super, because you have magic and extra turns and everything else, then you should be able to win. That's it. This is insanely strong. You get negative, you play magic, you play Jane, you get all the cheap cards, and you drop a million 0 power cards. It even has the extra null for Shang-Chi and certain locations, which gives you free wins. If you see the +2 energy location and you draw null, just destroy all your stuff and then play null on 5, Zol on 6, or null on 6, Zol on 7, and you should be able to win that matchup most of the time. That kind of thing is crazy strong and thus incredibly useful. Negative remains one of the very best conquest decks in the game. From there, we have the Scream move. This is a really strong deck. I keep telling everyone Scream is one of the best decks in Marvel Snap, and every time we do anything purely statistically based, Scream shows up as one of the best decks. This is the standard version. You want Scream or Craven down early. They are your 2 scalers. If you can scale either one, you have enough disruption that your opponent should have a really hard time generating positive power. Luke can give this deck trouble. Luke can just beat this deck, but there's not a lot of Luke right now, and thus Rocket and Groot and Scream, 2 of the top 5 to 10 cards in Marvel Snap, along with Iron Patriot and Captain America, 2 of the top 2 to 3 cards in Marvel Snap, all combined to being absolutely incredibly strong. Next up, we have 2 Khonshu decks. This is, as I told you, an Apocalypse discard. This is slightly different than the version we featured yesterday. It is 2 cards different, I want to say. It is running Scorn over Malekith, and it's running Colleen over the name of card escapes. Over Moon Knight. So you can make those changes and still be perfectly acceptable with this list. Feel free to mix and match as you want. No one knows what the exact version is, but this version is rocking a very high win rate in Infinite Conquest. This card is really hard to deal with in Infinite Conquest. Again, what we're seeing in Infinite Conquest, outside of the Scream deck, is that decks, if you don't have an answer for them that can scale upward indefinitely, are very, very, very challenging to beat. So this is absolutely one of those. While Gambit gives you the variance you need to win, Proxima gives you the ways to get into like these hard-to-reach locations. And then like Khonshu gives you just another way to scale up a card. Oh no, I discarded Dracula with Corvus. No problem. Khonshu gives you a 12-power Dracula that's still going to grow from there. That kind of thing is game-winning and back-breaking. I really love this list. Then finally, Danish says this isn't that good, but it's performing. It sure is performing in. Excuse me, trouble breathing. It sure is performing really, really well in Infinite Conquest. This is the lowest win rate at only like a 64%. Everything else here is above 65, but it is succeeding. Again, Hela is very hard to answer in Conquest, much like Negative, much like Classic Discard, much like Bullseye. What we're seeing with these lists is when you don't have your combos, you retreat. And when you do have your combos, your opponent is sort of stuck. They're trapped. They can't just run like they can on ladder, and thus you're able to steal Conquest wins and win Conquest games. We covered this list on Tuesday's video. If you want a full breakdown of it, literally card for card, this list. So if you need that, check yesterday's. If you want a full coverage of this, check Tuesday's. This one is in Wednesday's video. And then we covered a different Scream list in yesterday's video. We haven't covered this negative since last Friday. It's been a while. And then this Abra deck, the Abra version of the Kochia deck, we covered in Monday's video and Friday's video. So if you're interested, we have all these decks covered with full turn by turns and card replacements very recently on the channel. If you want to see some gameplay for this, and since tonight we're mostly going to be doing the podcast, please check out the stream team. The King of Canada will be streaming at around noon today with these very decks. Questions of the day. Our first is from Nuff Poppin, who says, in Silver Gold Conquest, if someone takes 8 cubes off me right away, I might concede. Not guaranteed, but I might. If someone shows bad manners on my way to conceding, i.e. emotes, it becomes my solemn duty to stay, come back, and win, especially if my deck can do it. If I fail, I've spared the rest of the user base from having to deal with this person for a couple of minutes. If I succeed, it's so satisfying. Do you agree? Yep, Love it. Perfect. If you're gonna emote after an 8Q win, expect me to make your life annoying. Unless I'm streaming though, because streaming is sometimes more about content than about what I want to do. But like generally speaking, if I have time to do so, I will absolutely spend my time doing that. Be polite in Conquest. Don't be a jerk. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. No one's perfect. Everyone keeps asking me what makes Sam Wilson so good. I get this message like twice a day, so I'm just gonna answer it like here. Hopefully it doesn't get nerfed. Well, maybe it hopefully gets nerfed on the way. But excuse me. The first reason that Sam Wilson is so good, and Sam Wilson is in fact one of the 2 or 3 best cards in Marvel Snap. I personally have him at rank 3. Most people have him at rank 2 or 1. It's between he and Iron Patriot, and I also have Galacta there. Is Sam Wilson's fundamentally a 2/8. Twos, generally speaking, without building your whole deck, don't get that big. Unless you build your whole deck around it, a 2 does not get that big. Sam Wilson can do that in any deck just by being played on either turn 2 or turn 3. If you do that and nothing stops it, it is a 2/8. You move the shield to it twice, that's a 2/7. The shield has 1 power, 2/8. See how easy that is? That's a ton of stats. The shield also, if nothing else happens, is just a +1 power for the game that you can plan around all game. That helps for early priority, which really does help for things like Iron Patriot and other combinations. The other things the shield does is it suddenly made Ms. Marvel a playable card again. Ms. Marvel loves having a 0 cost shield, and thus that is a useful card. Ongoing decks, which we're going to see a lot more of next season, has 3 important new ongoing cards come. Really love Sam Wilson. Having an extra ongoing card on the board at all times that comes with another ongoing card in deck is amazing for cards like Spectrum, amazing for cards like classic Steve Rogers Captain America, who's now a fairly decent card. And then finally, we also have the uses, like there's a lot like uses with Elsa, where it helps to fill a lane so you can get that buff. And the other big one is Agamotto, the Images of Icon spell. That shield is absolutely a perfect place to play your Galacta, to play your Gwenpool, in order to Images of Icon and get an extra absolutely huge card. So Sam Wilson has a ton of synergy. While and also the shield can sometimes go into an uh like a sanctum type location or a death's domain type location that you or your opponent can't get into and win the game that way. So there's just an absolute ton of different ways that Sam Wilson's shield ends up being incredibly strong and useful while being attached to a 2/8 body. This is obviously an extremely strong combination. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with honor. Thanks. I'm going to say thank you relatively quickly today. Thank you to Absolute Shannon, Abigail Gison, Mandatory Burnout, Irregardless, LAB, Inc., Iron Frostman, Hota Navarrete, Thinking Poker, Primed Ryan, Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Ryans, Kirtix Lee, Koi Ray, Rude, Kazushi, and Archangel 3K, 4Ks, 3 of Kindness, 1 of Rudeness. Black Dahlia, Perofus, The Goat Seeker, Alliance Leaders, Hollowed, Nightmare, Only Fox, Synth, what's up Synth, Nick, Dirty, Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, what's up Kerfuff, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of The Danger Zone, The Bizza, Black Jeebus 23, XRC and Skippy G, Rhyming Friends, Jessica Gamble, Mr. Slushdeath, The Kinger Bros, Bro, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kevsy Hoda, Luna, Chris, Clam, Colonel Forbin, Sup Forbin, Bricks to Click, Rob Silverman, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Stephen Rankoff, and Justin March, and me, Mr. Greg, Sorry, Matt V. That is real name town, Renringe, Corwin, John Q, and Jimmy McHugh, Q Town, and Renringe just chilling at the doorstep. Gist out. Ugh, excuse me. Eighth Sage, One Big Man, Milkman for Reals, Cactus, it's Mr. Cactus Jack, who is climbing into the top 100. BG, Quid Pro Joe, Snap Decisions Joe, what's up Joe? Joe's, Models, Mod Supreme, Green Goblin, Unibot, Flan 56, The Fazlam, Spectrum X, Hoot, Ocularis, Matt H, DJ Mike Adjings, No Freaking Flex, Nick the Greek Geek, Zodrex, The King of Canada, Denman, Falcon, Fowler Newman, Jonesy, Two Ties the Great, Lauren Whatevs, what's up Lauren? Great chat today. The Perry King Tucker, and of course, Gunny T. The T, in fact, my friends, stands for. Don't forget the second video today, and I'll see you hopefully for that one and on stream later tonight. Peace.